Hello everyone, my name is Connor and welcome back to the Aspergian Journal. In today's video I want to introduce myself a little bit more and to also talk about the autistic spectrum and neurodiverse traits, especially when comparing what medical professionals will tell you compared to the living experience and that with autism or another neurodiversity trait. To tell you a little bit more about myself, I am 31 years old and as a child I was diagnosed with classic autism and moderate learning difficulties. I went to an autistic specialist school and that from the age of 4 to about 8 years old, where I was put into mainstream schooling starting in primary school until I was about age 11, and then went to secondary school for 5 years following that, and then at 16 went to college and sixth form education. As a child, especially when I was at this autistic specialist school, and my parents and myself were told by teachers and other healthcare professionals that I would not amount to much or achieve anything in my life. As a result of this, my mum and that especially, and that worked really hard to ensure that I got the support that I needed and that to be able to cope through those school years. And even she'll be the first to admit that my original diagnosis and that seemed to be a bit wrong, considering that I had quite a high IQ and that from an early age, and my original diagnosis did not really reflect the capabilities that I had and as a young pupil. What you have to remember is that back in those days, in the 90s, the awareness and that for autism and or the spectrum overall it is not as highly well known as it is now, even though the support and that was there. Where nowadays it's the other way round. The awareness has got better, but the resources to provide support for the massive number of people that have got a diagnosis of autism of some kind is not there, which then leads to those societal issues in regards to parents trying to find support for their children, and it's just not out there, or it's in very low supply, and that despite the high demand. When growing up, especially in my teenage years at secondary school, I was bullied quite a lot for basically just being different and that to the other students. At the same time, I was also questioning myself about who am I as an autistic person? Am I really autistic or am I not? Because basically I just wanted to fit in with everybody else. You know, I could see the differences between how other kids used to interact so easily and were able to get things very easily, and I had certain difficulties and had to be able to match up to their capabilities. As a result of this really led to me having, severe anxiety issues and really, suffering mentally, and that because of the uncertainty about life in general growing up, really questioning the original diagnosis and that I got at the age of 4, and this this search for wanting to really put, you know, a bullet point on exactly where did I fit on the autistic spectrum, even though I did not really know much about it at the time, but I just distinctively knew that there was something different about me, and I was looking for answers, but those answers weren't always easy to find. When I got to about 18 years old, my anxiety was in a very bad place, and I was quite really overwhelmed with it all, that I had to go to my local doctor, and they got me in touch with a mental health nurse, and when I was talking to them about what was going on in my mind and everything, and also my history of being an autistic person, and I had to do like so many like tests, that they actually identified that I was actually more Asperger's more than classic autism, with hardly any moderate learning difficulties. Because when I did those tests, I didn't really have like moderate learning difficulties. It was mainly how I process information, which can be linked to having mild dyslexia. But despite all the shortcomings and the challenges and adversities that I faced as a child, even from a very young age, I had this sheer determination within me to try and prove people wrong, and prove not only to them but to myself that I can achieve something and make something greater with my life, even though I did not really know how I was going to achieve it. But I think to have that determination and that outlook from a young age, I think is something remarkable, and to take value from that. Over the last 10 years, and leaving school with no qualifications, and basically any employer that I tried to gain work in telling me I was nothing, I was unemployable, they just did not want to know. I went to college and university over a 6-year period, and had to do business studies because I was interested in business and like accountancy kind of work, but I just did not know on what specific role at the time that I wanted to do. But I think for me at that time, I was more focused on building the foundations that I needed to build a successful career, regardless of where it takes me. So I signed up to my local college, higher education college, to do business studies and at BTECs for about 3 years. Before I actually started the course, the tutors and that would say to me that, oh, you might find this challenging, or because I didn't have any GCSEs and that, or any of the requirements and that I needed to get on the course, and that they said and that they have a 3-month trial period to see how you get on, and if you can't match the work that they set you, you know, that they can take you off the course. And I only really got on the course because I was a mature student. But despite this adversity, in my first year alone, I actually won Business Student of the Year award, and actually gained distinction stars in all my assessments, basically exceeding all their low expectations, and actually even proving to even shocking my own parents, that something great can be achieved if you put your heart and soul into something. And this early success really propelled me forward as I went on to go to university at the University of Lincoln to do business studies, 2 years higher national diploma and then a BA top-up, both in the same subject, and graduated in 2018 and 2019 for both my HND and BA honours, and in Lincoln Cathedral, where they have the graduation ceremonies. After my successes at university, it was my intentions to go on and do my chartered accountancy studies and hopefully gain employment, and that through like graduate schemes or like apprenticeships. However, when the pandemic struck, a lot of the graduate employment and opportunities dried up for the next 2 years, which left me in a little bit of a quadrant on wondering what my next steps were going to be in terms of gaining actual practical employment, but also building towards my next steps in my professional studies. Once we started coming out of the pandemic in 2021, I actually was successful in gaining an apprenticeship, and that with a local social housing association, to do my accountancy studies, and I was there for about 18 months. This apprenticeship served as my actual first paid employment. So after so many years of trying to gain an education, and just to basically make myself employable, it was a massive milestone in my personal development story. But despite my successes on my apprenticeship and really exceeding expectations all the same, and I was unsuccessful in staying on afterwards, and that due to budget constraints, which meant I had to go look for other employment after the success of my apprenticeship. As a result of not being able to stay with that employer on completion of my apprenticeship, I did feel a little bit distraught really, because at that point I worked so hard over that 10-year tenure to gain a really good valuable education and get all the practical work experiences that I could in all aspects, like customer service, administration, finance, volunteering for local charities, basically anything to make myself employable. And it felt like it wasn't enough. Like they didn't want to see the potential that I could bring to the role. So I felt a little bit distraught, but I thought back on, I got my head into gear and just focus on the next big step, and to find other employment elsewhere. For autistic people, it is harder to gain employment, as studies have shown that around 16% of autistic adults are in some form of paid employment. So what happens to the other 84%? So I soldiered on, and hopefully something new would come up. And it did. But it was only a temporary role, and that for a local NHS community organisation. And practically, even though it was the next step up, in terms of practical experience, it was a good thing. But it was just the whole situation, and that just didn't sit well with me. And I was only there for about 3 months, and that because they found somebody else to take on the role that they were actually advertising. So really, I was only there and that as a fill-in person, really. But around this time, especially when I left my employer where I did my apprenticeship with, and I was really in two minds about, do I go self-employed or do I carry on down this path that I'm on, despite the numerous challenges that I'm coming up against in terms of gaining employment in this specific industry. Because accountancy is one of those industries that it is really a hard industry to get into, let's just say, unless you know a lot of people. So when I finished my role at this NHS community organisation and really felt quite despondent about what my next steps were going to be, this is where the idea of the Aspergian Journal came about. Because if there's one thing that I've always wanted to show, is to be a true living example to other people what autistic people can do, and that if they put their heart and soul and hard work into something. Basically be a true living example of what an autistic person can do. That has always been like my goal in life. Even if it was working for other people, or even starting this journey now and as a self-employed person. And I just felt compelled, not only because it was like some kind of calling that I had to answer to, but also because I do have the knowledge and the experience and that to be able to make a true impact on this journey that I'm embarking on. And I'm hoping that you will ride alongside me on this journey as we move forward. But you know what really got me through those years of when I had real bad mental health was my interests. That's what got me through. Now, I'm a bit of a car enthusiast, and that, so I like my cars, like luxury cars like Aston Martin, Ferrari, and many others. You know, and if you're a car enthusiast, and that, surely you would have followed like Top Gear and Jeremy Clarkson. You know, I've been following that man for nearly 20 odd years. You know, and like James Bond movies as well. And it's funny though, isn't it, that actually my love for Top Gear was actually what got me into the James Bond franchise. I only went to see Casino Royale, and that because there was a picture of an Aston Martin DBS on one of the cinema posters outside one of the View cinemas, and I only went to go see that film just because of that. So it's really funny how one thing can lead to another and then lead to something else, you know, and you broaden your interests and your mind to newer things, which is actually what is going to be one of the core elements of this journey, incorporating the autism advocacy work alongside exploring interests and hobbies that other people can relate to. I'm also very passionate about our history, and as I am a member of the National Trust and English Heritage charities, and I feel that it's important that we maintain and support charities and that keep our historical landmarks and that in check, and preserve them and that for future generations to come. To conclude, you most probably be thinking by now that it takes someone with great strength and determination to overcome those challenges and adversities and come out swinging, and that with huge pride and success in terms of striving for what one wants to achieve and put the hard work and effort in to get there. And you are absolutely right. That is why I do strongly feel that I have the knowledge, the experience, the maturity, and hopefully wisdom, and that to be able to share with you my insights on a wide variety of topics that are related to autism, as well as learning new perspectives along the way, and which hopefully can provide some kind of source of inspiration which other people will be able to just have that moment in their mind where it just clicks, and that is like the first step that starts them on their own individual journeys towards personal development. And that is what this channel is about. Conducting autism advocacy through empowerment and inspiration. And as we do future videos where I do go into these individual topics relating to autism in a lot more detail, I'm hoping that you will gain tremendous value from this. And that not just autistic people, but also neurotypical people as well. I'm really hoping that they can gain value from this content, and that so we can together, close this invisible divide in our society and build a community that is supportive and collaborative with one another, and hopefully it can lead to greater things and future prosperity for everyone that wants to play an active role in this community. Thank you.